Have you ever watched someone ignore your kindness, take your loyalty for granted, and walk away as if losing you meant nothing? Most people believe the answer is to love harder, explain more, and prove their worth again and again, but that is exactly why they remain invisible. Machiavelli understood a truth that many people refuse to accept. People rarely value what is always available. They value what they fear losing. The moment you stop chasing approval and start protecting your own value, the entire game changes. This is not about revenge. It is not about manipulation. It is about understanding human nature so deeply that you never become someone's easy option again. If he does not value you today, the first mistake is believing that words will change him. Many people think one more conversation, one more emotional message, or one more chance will suddenly make another person realize their importance. It almost never happens. Words have very little power when actions already tell a different story. A person who truly values you does not need constant reminders. Their behavior speaks before their mouth ever does. Machiavelli believed that people respond to power far more than they respond to emotion. This does not mean becoming cruel. It means understanding that respect is built through actions, not endless explanations. Every time you beg someone to appreciate you, you quietly teach them that they hold the higher position. You hand them the power they never earned. Think about how people behave in everyday life. When something is easy to replace, they treat it carelessly. When something is rare, they protect it. Human psychology has not changed for centuries. We chase what seems valuable and ignore what seems guaranteed. This is why constantly proving your love often produces the opposite result. Instead of increasing your value, it lowers it. Many people confuse love with sacrifice. They believe giving everything without limits is a sign of strength. Machiavelli would disagree. Unlimited giving without boundaries creates dependence on one side and disrespect on the other. A relationship without balance slowly becomes a kingdom with only one ruler. Imagine a king who gives away his treasure every single day without asking for loyalty in return. At first, the people celebrate his generosity. Soon, they begin expecting it. Eventually, they complain whenever they receive less. Gratitude disappears because constant rewards become normal. Human beings quickly adapt to comfort. What once felt special becomes ordinary. Relationships follow the same pattern. If you always answer first, always forgive first, always apologize first, always make the effort, your presence slowly becomes expected instead of appreciated. The problem is not your kindness. The problem is the absence of limits. One of Machiavelli's greatest lessons is that power belongs to those who can control themselves. Notice he did not say power belongs to those who control others. The greatest victory is mastery over your own emotions. When someone ignores you, your first instinct is to chase. When someone becomes distant, your heart wants immediate answers. But emotional reactions often destroy strategic thinking. The person who remains calm sees possibilities that panic cannot see. This is why silence has always been more powerful than desperate words. Silence forces people to think. Desperation removes all mystery. If he knows you will always return no matter how he behaves, he has no reason to change. Why would anyone improve when poor behavior still receives the same rewards? Change usually begins only after consequences appear. Many people fear consequences because they confuse them with punishment. They are not the same thing. Punishment is about hurting someone. Consequences are about protecting yourself. Walking away from disrespect is not revenge. It is self-respect in action. Look closely at confident people. They rarely argue about their worth. They simply remove themselves from places where they are not appreciated. That quiet decision often speaks louder than hours of emotional conversations. There is another mistake people make when they feel undervalued. They start competing for attention. They dress differently, message more often, become more available, or try harder to impress. But attention gained through effort disappears the moment the effort stops. Respect earned through character lasts much longer. Machiavelli understood that appearance matters, but consistency matters even more. Anyone can pretend to have confidence for a few days, Real confidence appears when your actions remain steady, even during emotional storms. Imagine standing in front of a mirror every morning asking yourself one question. If I met myself today, would I believe I deserve respect? Not because of beauty, not because of money, not because someone else chose me, but because I keep my word, honor my boundaries, and refuse to abandon my dignity. That question changes everything. Most people spend years trying to convince others they are valuable, while never convincing themselves first. The world notices the value you believe about yourself. Confidence is rarely announced. It is quietly displayed through behavior. Notice how some people enter a room without saying much, yet everyone pays attention. It is not magic. It is certainty. They do not seek validation, because they already possess it internally. People naturally become curious about those who are not begging to be noticed. Scarcity creates attention. Neediness destroys it. This is why constantly checking your phone after sending a message weakens your peace. Your emotions become controlled by another person's response time. Without realizing it, you have allowed someone else's choices to determine your emotional state. Machiavelli would call this dangerous, because anyone who controls your emotions controls your decisions. Freedom begins the moment you stop giving strangers access to your inner peace. Think carefully about this. If your happiness depends on someone finally appreciating you, then your happiness is no longer yours. It belongs to them. That is one of the most expensive trades anyone can make. Power does not come from making someone miss you. Real power comes from knowing you will be fine, even if they never do. This mindset changes your behavior naturally. You stop forcing conversations. You stop explaining yourself repeatedly. You stop chasing people who keep walking away. Instead, you invest your energy where respect already exists. Ironically, this is often the exact moment people begin noticing your absence. Human beings are curious creatures. We rarely question constant availability, but we immediately notice change. When someone who always chased suddenly becomes peaceful, questions begin forming. What happened? Why are they different? Why are they no longer reacting? That curiosity is far stronger than another emotional paragraph sent late at night. Some people will return once they notice the difference. Others will not. Here lies another important lesson from Machiavelli. Your goal should never be making someone come back. Your goal should be becoming someone who no longer fears whether they return or not. There is a huge difference. The first mindset gives them control. The second gives you freedom. Many relationships fail because people try to save the relationship while forgetting to save themselves. They tolerate disrespect in the hope that patience will eventually be rewarded. Sometimes it is. Most times it simply teaches the other person that disrespect carries no cost. Healthy love is never built on fear, but it is built on respect. Respect cannot survive where boundaries do not exist. Imagine building a beautiful house without doors. Anyone can enter. Anyone can leave. Anyone can take whatever they want. Would you call that kindness? Of course not. You would call it carelessness. Boundaries are the doors of your emotional home. They decide who enters, who stays, and who leaves. Without them, even the kindest heart eventually becomes exhausted. People often ask why someone changed after years together. In many cases, the signs were always there. Small moments of disrespect were ignored because love seemed more important than self-respect. Little by little, the balance disappeared. Machiavelli reminds us that small changes often create the greatest outcomes. A kingdom is rarely destroyed in one day. It falls because small problems are ignored until they become impossible to control. Relationships work the same way. Every ignored boundary teaches a lesson. Every accepted disrespect writes a new rule. Every silent compromise slowly changes the balance of power. The question is not whether he values you today. The real question is whether your actions encourage him to value you tomorrow. Because people do not simply listen to what you say. The moment you stop accepting less than you deserve, something unusual begins to happen. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You may question yourself. You may wonder if you are being too cold or too distant. But this discomfort is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking an old habit. For a long time, you trained yourself to earn love by giving more and asking for less. Now you are learning a different lesson. Respect starts with what you refuse to tolerate. Machiavelli understood that people constantly test limits, whether they realize it or not. These tests are not always planned. Sometimes they happen naturally. Someone cancels plans at the last minute. Someone ignores your messages for days, but expects an immediate reply from you. Someone disappears whenever life becomes difficult, and returns only when they need comfort. Each moment asks the same question. How much will you accept before you finally protect yourself? Your answer is never spoken with words. It is written through your actions. If every broken promise receives another chance without change, the promise loses its value. If every excuse is accepted without consequence, excuses become the new normal. People repeat what works for them. That is human nature. Many believe love means endless patience, but patience without wisdom becomes permission. There is a difference between understanding someone's mistakes and becoming a place where those mistakes are never challenged. Think about a garden. A gardener waters the flowers, removes weeds, and protects the soil. But if the gardener ignores every weed, because pulling them out feels uncomfortable, the flowers eventually disappear. Kindness without discipline destroys what kindness was trying to protect. Your peace works the same way. One of the strongest moves you can make is learning not to react immediately. Modern life has trained people to answer everything at once. A message arrives, and people feel pressure to respond. Someone says something hurtful, and they immediately defend themselves. Someone becomes distant, and panic takes over. But immediate reactions usually come from emotion, not wisdom. Machiavelli admired those who observed before acting. Observation reveals patterns that emotion hides. Instead of asking, "Why did he do this?" ask yourself, "How often has this happened?" Patterns reveal character far better than isolated moments. Anyone can have a bad day. Anyone can make one mistake. But repeated behavior tells you who someone truly is. Many people waste years believing potential instead of accepting reality. They fall in love with promises rather than actions. They imagine the person someone could become instead of recognizing who they already are. This is one of the most dangerous traps. Potential is not reality. Hope is not evidence. Dreams are not behavior. If someone repeatedly shows you that you are not a priority, believe the pattern instead of the apology. Apologies without change become another form of delay. That does not mean people cannot grow. Of course they can, but real growth is visible. It appears in consistent action, not emotional speeches. Machiavelli often looked beyond appearances, because appearances can be created. Behavior is much harder to fake over time. Imagine a merchant who promises the finest goods in the city, yet every delivery arrives damaged. Eventually, would you continue believing his words? Of course not. You would judge him by results. Yet many people judge relationships by promises instead of results. The heart often ignores what the mind already knows. That is why emotional discipline is so important. Discipline allows you to see clearly when emotions try to create comforting stories. Another mistake people make is trying to become unforgettable by doing. They think bigger gifts, longer messages, and greater sacrifices will increase their value. But value does not grow because you exhaust yourself. Value grows because your presence improves life, while your absence is genuinely felt. There is a quiet confidence in people who know they can leave if they are not respected. They do not threaten to leave. They do not announce it dramatically. They simply understand that staying where they are constantly undervalued costs too much. Time is the only resource you never recover. Money can return. Opportunities can return. Even relationships can return. But every day spent begging someone to appreciate you is a day you never receive again. Machiavelli believed that wise people think about long-term consequences rather than short-term emotions. Ask yourself one question. If nothing changed over the next 5 years, would this relationship make your life better or worse? Most people already know the answer. They simply fear acting on it. Fear keeps people attached to situations that no longer serve them. Fear whispers that no one else will understand them. Fear says they have already invested too much time. Fear says leaving means failure. But staying in a place where your value keeps shrinking is not loyalty. It is surrender. There is another truth that many avoid because it is uncomfortable. Sometimes people do value you. They simply do not value you enough to treat you the way you deserve. Those two things are completely different. Someone may enjoy your company. They may like your attention. They may appreciate your kindness. But appreciation without commitment is not enough. You deserve more than being someone's convenient choice. Machiavelli understood that power often belongs to the person who needs the situation the least. This is why building your own life is so important. Develop your skills. Protect your health. Strengthen your mind. Create meaningful friendships. Build goals that exist beyond one relationship. When your entire identity depends on one person, losing them feels like losing yourself. But when your identity is built on purpose, discipline, and self-respect, no single rejection can destroy your foundation. This is why truly confident people are attractive. Not because they are perfect, not because they never feel pain, but because they continue growing regardless of who stays or leaves. Growth creates quiet strength. Desperation creates quiet weakness. Imagine two trees standing side by side during a storm. One has deep roots. The other depends on another tree to remain standing. When the wind becomes stronger, only one survives on its own. Your confidence must become like those deep roots. It should not depend on compliments. It should not depend on attention. It should not depend on one person's opinion. The strongest position in any relationship is knowing your value before someone else confirms it. Ironically, this often changes the entire dynamic. People notice when your energy changes. They notice when you stop arguing for basic respect. They notice when your happiness no longer depends on their approval. Some become curious. Some become uncomfortable. Some finally begin making an effort. Others disappear completely. Both outcomes are valuable, because every person who leaves after you establish healthy boundaries was benefiting from your lack of them. That truth may hurt at first, but it also sets you free. Machiavelli never suggested wasting energy on those determined to misunderstand you. Instead, he believed in directing your attention where it could actually produce results. Your attention is like sunlight. Whatever receives it grows. If you constantly feed anxiety, anxiety grows. If you constantly feed insecurity, insecurity grows. If you constantly feed your purpose, your strength grows. This is why your focus matters so much. Every hour spent wondering why someone does not value you is an hour stolen from becoming the person whose value is impossible to ignore. You cannot force respect. You cannot negotiate genuine desire. You cannot convince someone to see your worth if they are committed to overlooking it. But you can make one decision that changes your entire future. You can stop placing your value into someone else's hands. The day you understand this, you stop asking, "How can I make him change?" Instead, you begin asking, "How can I become so strong that I never again accept less than I deserve?" That question transforms everything, because the greatest victory is never changing another person's mind. The greatest victory is changing your own standards. And once your standards rise, the people allowed into your life begin to change as well. The strongest people are not those who never experience disappointment. They are those who refuse to let disappointment decide their future. They learn from it, grow through it, and become wiser because of it. That is the quiet power Machiavelli recognized. The world respects those who first learn to respect themselves. The final step, however, is the one that separates temporary confidence from lasting power. It is the lesson that determines whether someone who once ignored your value ever truly sees it, or whether you realize you no longer need them to. That is where the greatest transformation begins. The final lesson is the hardest, because it asks you to let go of something most people secretly hold onto. It asks you to stop making your happiness depend on whether one person finally recognizes your worth. This is where real power begins. As long as your peace depends on someone changing, you are still giving them control over your life. The day your peace belongs to you again is the day you become truly free. Machiavelli understood that the strongest position is never built on dependence. A ruler who depends entirely on one ally is always vulnerable. The moment that ally leaves, everything falls apart. Your emotional life follows the same rule. If your confidence depends on one person's attention, your confidence is fragile. If your identity depends on one relationship, your identity can be shaken overnight. This is why the first person you must convince is not him. It is yourself. Look honestly at your life. Are you becoming the person you admire, or are you spending every day trying to become the person someone else might finally choose? Those are two completely different paths. One builds strength, the other builds dependence. Many people spend years trying to earn love from someone who has already shown them exactly where they stand. They analyze every message, every silence, every small change in behavior. They search for hidden meanings because the truth feels too painful to accept. But the truth is often simple. Someone who values you makes room for you. Someone who respects you protects your feelings. Someone who cares about you does not repeatedly force you to question your place in their life. Perfection does not exist. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has difficult days. But there is a difference between occasional mistakes and consistent neglect. Wise people learn to recognize that difference. Machiavelli believed that reality is always more useful than fantasy. Reality may hurt for a while, but fantasy keeps people trapped for years. The sooner you accept what is happening, instead of what you wish were happening, the sooner you regain control of your future. One of the greatest signs of emotional maturity is no longer needing constant reassurance. You stop chasing certainty from other people because you have built certainty within yourself. You know your values. You know your standards. You know what you bring into a relationship. That inner confidence cannot be taken away by someone's changing emotions. Think about the sun for a moment. It shines every day without asking the world for permission. It does not become brighter because someone praises it. It does not disappear because someone ignores it. Its value does not depend on public opinion. Your self-worth should become like that. Too many people dim their own light because one person failed to notice it. They begin doubting themselves. They stop believing in their own beauty, intelligence, kindness, or potential. They allow another person's opinion to rewrite the story they tell themselves. Never give anyone that much power. The opinion of one person is not the definition of your value. Machiavelli understood another important truth. Respect begins with consistency. If today you protect your boundaries, but tomorrow you abandon them because you fear losing someone, your message becomes unclear. People believe what they repeatedly see, not what they occasionally hear. This is why discipline matters more than motivation. Some days you will feel lonely. Some days you will miss the person who failed to appreciate you. Some days you will wonder if lowering your standards would make life easier. Do not confuse temporary loneliness with permanent loss. Loneliness passes. Self-betrayal leaves scars that remain much longer. Every time you choose dignity over desperation, you become stronger. Every time you refuse to chase someone who keeps walking away, you recover another piece of your self-respect. Every time you say no to disrespect, you quietly say yes to yourself. These small decisions may seem invisible, but together they create an entirely different life. Imagine standing on a mountain after years of climbing. The climb was painful. There were moments when you wanted to quit. There were days when the path disappeared beneath thick clouds. But once you reached the top, you realized something important. The mountain did not change you because it was easy. It changed you because it demanded growth. Pain often becomes the teacher that comfort never could. Many of the strongest people you admire today were once ignored, rejected, underestimated, or abandoned. Their strength was not born from constant success. It was built by refusing to let rejection define them. Machiavelli would remind you that every setback carries a hidden lesson. Some lessons teach patience. Others teach courage. But perhaps the greatest lesson is learning who deserves access to your time, your loyalty, and your heart. Not everyone earns that privilege. That is why selective trust is wisdom, not bitterness. Open your heart, but do not abandon your judgment. Show kindness, but do not sacrifice your dignity. Love deeply, but never lose yourself in the process. There is a quiet confidence that appears when you stop trying to control outcomes. You no longer obsess over whether someone will call, text, apologize, or return. If they do, you observe their actions, instead of believing empty promises. If they do not, you continue building a meaningful life without them. That peace cannot be bought. It cannot be borrowed. It must be built. Ironically, this is often when people who once overlooked you begin paying attention. They notice your calmness. They notice your independence. They notice that you are no longer seeking their approval. Sometimes they return because they genuinely changed. Sometimes they return because they simply missed the attention you once gave so freely. Knowing the difference requires wisdom. Do not judge their words. Judge their consistency. Anyone can promise change. Few people live it every day. Real change is patient. Real change is reliable. Real change continues even when nobody is watching. If someone truly values you, they will not expect you to ignore the past overnight. They will understand that trust must be rebuilt through repeated actions. Trust is like a bridge. It is not repaired with one conversation. It is repaired one strong stone at a time. And if they never return, then let them become part of your education instead of your future. Some people enter your life to stay. Others enter your life to teach. Both have value if you learn the lesson. The greatest mistake is allowing one disappointment to convince you that everyone will disappoint you. Protect your standards without closing your heart. Stay wise without becoming cold. Remain strong without losing your kindness. That balance is true power. Remember this whenever you begin questioning your worth. You are not difficult to love because someone failed to appreciate you. You are not less valuable because someone chose convenience over commitment. You are not ordinary because one person overlooked what you offered. Their inability to recognize your value does not reduce your value. A diamond remains a diamond, even when someone mistakes it for a common stone. The wise person does not waste years trying to convince the wrong buyer. They simply walk toward a place where true value is recognized. This is the decision that changes everything. Stop measuring yourself by who stayed. Start measuring yourself by the principles you refused to abandon. Stop asking whether someone else finally understands your worth. Ask whether you are living in a way that honors it every single day. Because in the end, the greatest victory is not making him change. The greatest victory is becoming someone who no longer needs another person's approval to feel complete. That is the moment you become impossible to control. That is the moment you become impossible to replace. And that is the moment the quiet wisdom of Machiavelli reveals its deepest truth. The people who command the greatest respect are not those who demand to be valued. They are the ones who value themselves so completely that the world has no choice but to notice. If this message spoke to you, take 1 second to like this video, subscribe for more timeless wisdom, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave a comment below and tell us which lesson changed your thinking the most. Your support helps this channel reach more people seeking strength, wisdom, and self-respect.